am be talking about habits this week, continuing to talk about habits. Um, and before I get too far into that, though, let's just ground ourselves here in the meeting. So, if it feels comfortable to do so, perhaps you can close your eyes with me. And obviously, if you're driving, operating heavy machinery, near a body of water, you don't need to practice this with me. And if it doesn't feel safe to close your eyes right now, perhaps you can just shift your gaze gently downwards. And as we sit here, let us come more and more into our bodies. Just begin to observe any sensations that are present in your body. Observe the sensation where your body makes contact with the chair or the cushion you're on. And just noting the sensations that are present there. And perhaps begin to note the sensations of the air on your skin. Is it cool? Is it warm? Is it still? Is there a breeze in the air? And then recognize any sounds in your environment. Maybe there's wind, maybe there's birds, maybe there's other natural sounds in your environment. And perhaps there's man-made sounds. Maybe there's traffic, maybe there's people talking. Just allow these sounds to bring you more and more into the present moment. And now let us allow that focus to dissolve and bring a focus to your breath. Begin to follow your breath all the way in and follow your breath all the way out. Paying attention to the sensation of the breath. Not trying to change or fix anything, just observing. And perhaps now we can begin to deepen our breath, breathing in through the nose, all the way down into the belly, holding briefly on top, and then exhaling out the mouth through pursed lips like you're blowing out birthday candles. And again, in through the nose. Holding briefly on top, and then exhaling out the mouth. And a long, slow, steady exhale. And again, in. Hold. And now let it go. Let go, let go, let go, let go of anything that happened before this meeting. In. Hold. And let go. Let go, let go, let go of anything we think may happen after this meeting. In. Hold. And let go. Let go of the meeting itself. Let go of any expectations you have of this meeting. And allow your breathing to return to normal into the nose and out of the nose. And again, just recognizing and allowing any sensations that are present to be here. And now invite any movement into your body that feels welcoming, moving your fingers, moving your toes, perhaps moving your arms, moving your legs. Maybe a twist feels nice. Maybe putting our arms up in the air feels nice. Maybe opening our heart up to the world feels nice. Maybe close your eyes, you can flutter them open, or just bring your gaze gently upwards. Cool, thanks for joining me in that short grounding practice. Again, I'm cognitive fitness coach Chris Norris. If you want to know more about me, you can go to cognitivefitnesscoach.com. You can check out all the free resources that are there. And if you're drawn to my work, perhaps you can schedule a risk-free consultation and we can talk. And there's no cringy sales pitch there or anything. Just we'll just wrap and see if there's anything exists, there for us. And you'll leave that meeting with a practical tool, at least one, without any commitment. You don't need to get back with me, and I probably won't get back to you. I'm being honest. So, okay. So last week we talked about habits. It's that time of year, right? Everyone's talking about habits and habit change and how do we build good habits and how do we perhaps dismantle some of those unhelpful habits. And last week was really about building up our helpful habits. And building helpful habits, we used Dr. BJ Fogg's tiny habit formula. So just a brief recap of that. The tiny habit formula is basically looking at habits and saying that you need to have, in order for behavior to happen, you have to have motivation, you have to have the ability, and you have to have the prompt. So behavior equals MAP, motivation, ability, prompt. And when the behavior is something that's hard to do, then you need a lot of motivation to do it. If the behavior is easier to do, then you need less motivation. And so the tiny habit formula is, if the behavior is not happening, is we figure out, okay, it's easy for me to say, well, I just need to be more motivated and I just need more willpower. And it's like, no, if the behavior is not happening, what we do is we make it as easy as possible. So for me, mine has been push-ups, right? So rather than me saying like, okay, every day I'm going to do 100 push-ups, that is rather difficult, and that would require a ton of motivation to do. And perhaps I'm a little motivated to do push-ups, but I'm not like super motivated to do push-ups. So what we do is we scale that habit down really, really small, and we make the behavior very small. So rather than saying I'm going to do 100 push-ups, let me say I'm going to do one good full range of motion push-up, right? So now the behavior's small, it's easy to do, I don't rely on a whole bunch of motivation. But what about the prompt? What are we going to use for a prompt? Well, the genius is we use something that's already been established. We use something that's already formed. There's already all these pathways for it. It's locked in. So for me, my prompt has been, my anchoring behavior has been brushing my teeth, right? I'm going to brush my teeth twice a day, regardless of anything, right? I'm going to brush my teeth. So in the morning, as I'm getting ready, after I brush my teeth, I do one push-up. Then, this is the important part, and then I celebrate. I'm like, yes, I did it. Or I fill in my board or something like that. I have to have that positive emotion, because that's what brings things from something you do every now and again to something you do consistently is emotion. That emotion is what makes things go from something I do every now and again to something that is now a habit that I do. So bringing in that positive emotion is really important. So the formula again that we covered last week is after I blank, whatever that is, after I use something that you do every single day, preferably around the same time, after I blank, then and now you put in this new tiny habit that you want to do, and then I celebrate. And you have to figure out some way of celebrating. There's thousands of different ways out there, and perhaps in the comments on these videos, I'll put it at least 100 out of BJ's book I have over here called Tiny Habits. Cool, so that was last week. This week, I want to talk a little bit about Charles Duhigg and Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit. And I think this is very applicable for dismantling our unhelpful habits. So habits are all about automatic behaviors, So what they've come to see here is that the brain really likes to save energy, right? And it likes to put things in automatic ways. So the brain structure that helps with that is called the basal ganglia. And now the basal ganglia is deep in the brain, and it's responsible for pattern learning and automatic behavior. So its job is all about efficiency. So they've discovered a lot of things about the basal ganglia through experiments, and they're doing these experiments with rats, and they have these little operating tables, and they put these little probes in the rat's brain. They see like when energy is happening in the brain and what's going on when that's happening, and when energy spikes and when energy goes low. So with these rat experiments, they put them in these cages that are long hallways, and at the end of the hallway, the rat can go right or the rat can go left, and then there's a reward, either right or on the left, and then there's a door, and the door opens, and the rat goes down the maze and it sniffs its way through trying to find that reward. Well, they discovered that early on in the experiments, the brain activity was high. The brain activity was high the entire time as the rats went through these mazes. But as they began to learn the maze and learn where the chocolate was, the brain activity began to decrease in the routine, which is important for us. So the brain activity would spike at the beginning of the maze. So when the door came up, the brain activity would spike. Then the brain activity would drop away as the rat went into the routine of the maze, and then the brain activity would spike again at the end when there was a reward. So the brain was literally like chunking energy to save energy. And why is that important to us? Well, I know like with my habits, I can sometimes feel like I'm in like this zombie-like state when I'm in the routine of the habit, when I'm in it. So for us, brain activity is strongest at the beginning and at the end. So what does that say? Well, to me, that says that we really need to look at that prompt at the beginning of a habit. What is prompting me into this behavior? For the rats, it was the door came up. Boom, there's their prompt, lots of brain activity. They go into the maze, brain activity drops, and then boom, another spike at the end. So when we get these prompts and we go into this kind of zombie-like state, that's saying that the basal ganglia is in control, the prefrontal cortex begins to drop back, our awareness begins to narrow, and our choices decrease. So all habits, they follow the same loop, and that habit loop is cue, routine, reward. All habits follow that loop. Cue, routine, reward. So looking at this data of like, hey, I've got a lot of choice perhaps, and I have a lot of brain energy at the cue, but I don't so much at the routine, and I have more at the reward. Perhaps what we're going to do now is look at these habits, these unhelpful habits of what is the cue? What is cueing me into getting into this routine? So, what is the cue? If we have more brain power at the cue, what is the cue? So, some examples. Let's say my cue is I'm stressed. I get really stressed. And then my routine is I reach for my Hello Kitty cell phone. I wish my, my Hello Kitty cell phone. Right? I wish my Hello Kitty cell phone and I play a video game on it. That's my routine. And then my reward is I feel perhaps entertained, distracted, whatever it might be. Over time, though, we know like that's not the most helpful behaviors. So now, what if I have that same cue and I replace the routine? Because Charles Duhigg is all about like habit replacement. Once those pathways are made, we're going to replace them rather than try to extinguish them. We need those rewards. We need to satisfy that craving that is there. And the craving is to not be bored. And the craving is perhaps for some, at a deeper level, maybe it's connection or something else, right? But keeping it pretty surface right now. So, okay, the cue is I'm stressed. Let's put in a new routine. So if you start feeling like, hey, I'm stressed, I'm fatigued, I'm under a pressure, I have these uncomfortable emotions, let's look at like, what's the real reward we want here? Well, we want relief, we want some distraction, we want control, we want soothing, right? So that what we're doing, that routine, that habit, it's solving for that problem. But we're going to replace the routine and we're going to keep the reward. So one of the first things I would say is like, if you feel these cues coming on and you're going to participate in a habit that you know is a habit that is not helpful for you, and is perhaps is something you said, I'm gonna give that up in the new year. You feel that cue. One of the first things we want to do is just regulate. Like, can we get our body regulated first? Maybe we just slow down our exhale, right? Maybe we unhinge our jaw. Ugh. Maybe we put our feet on the floor. And now we look at a new routine. We look at a new routine. And maybe the routine is I'm feeling stressed. First thing I do, I begin to ground myself. Maybe the next thing I do, I get a cup of water. And after that, maybe I go outside. So we try to look at replacing the routine rather than extinguishing the reward. Like, there's a reason why we're doing these things. It's like I drank alcoholically for like 25 years. And as I used to say, like, I needed what alcohol did for me, but I couldn't take what it was doing to me. And that's what I'm talking about today. Like, we need that reward, but how we're getting it through these oftentimes synthetic, digital, and unnatural ways is perhaps doing things to us that are just not sustainable, man. Not if you want a happy, healthy, productive life. So my advice and my recommendation is you look at your habit routine, you look at your habit loops, you look at the cue. What is the cue? What is cueing me into the routine? And then what is the reward? And what is the real reward? And like maybe underneath that reward, like what is the real craving? Like what am I really trying to get? Because oftentimes too, these unhealthy habits, they're not really filling that need, that deep-seated need. They're not doing it. The problem is that they're almost doing it though. and they almost do it every single time. And that's why we keep going back. All right. I think I've said enough on that. So thanks for everybody that tuned into the live. I see you down here, YouTube. What's up? Thanks for all the highs. Thanks for everything. I appreciate it. I have two screens going, so I'm looking up at this and I'm looking down here at you. So yeah, cool. Thanks for tuning into the live. We do these every single week. On Monday evenings in the States, or Tuesday mornings if you're in on this side of the globe in Southeast Asia. And then I'm going to start also going live Wednesday evenings in the States at the same time, 6:30, and that will be Thursday mornings in Southeast Asia, and we're going to be doing some mindfulness meditation. So if that's something that interests you, and if perhaps it's one of the things that you said you were going to do in 2026, is you're going to start a meditation practice, or you've always just been interested in it, we're going to start really, really beginner friendly, and we're going to progress. And by the end of it, you should have a meditation practice that will literally change the structure of your brain for the better. So, again, I'm cognitive fitness coach Chris Norris. Check us out at cognitivefitnesscoach.com. Peace and be well.